Greetings, friends. Today is the 4th of April. We will talk about the whole front in principle. There are a lot of interesting news, a lot of changes. And of course at the end, about the main new news. We will start with you from the Kopysko-Limenski section of the front. Kopinskaya, Svitovsky section. Initially there were reports, we talked a few days ago, that artillery from the Russian side was activated there, which indicates artillery preparation, but to date, no serious assault actions have been taken by the Russian side on the Kupiansk-Svitovsky section of the front of the opposition character. We still have fighting both in the area of Sinkovka and the forest area west of Sinkovka, and in the area of Tebayevka. These are all either DUs or small groups with minimal activity. As for the Thorns, I missed one very important point yesterday, although I published it in my telegram in the evening. There were assault actions from the Russian side. There was a column in the direction of Turnov. It consisted of 6 armored vehicles. So, along one of the roads in the direction of the Thorns, between the Round Beam and the Laptev Yar, well, she was stopped. There are mistakes. So, if anyone is interested in my video, you can go to see the full one in the telegram. The first mistake is, of course, that they were marching in a column, which allowed the APU, due to artillery strikes, to inflict more serious damage initially due to proximity. Well, as a result, we managed to knock out all 6 armored vehicles. Therefore, the Russian troops retreated to their original positions. Yes, we do not record any changes, but we see that they make the same mistake on virtually all front lines periodically, as we have talked about. Well, moving in columns in the 3rd year of the war is something very interesting, I would say. Naturally, they are betting for a reason. This movement was a column. Betting on RAP systems due to proximity seems to be intensifying. Each of the armored vehicles has its own RAP system. But in fact, there is a feature here, as in the offensive, I forgot to say it yesterday, to the west of Thin, when they attacked with large forces of more than 30 armored vehicles. It means that the APU drones are really, as the APU fighters themselves wrote, they lost some effectiveness, and managed to break through this RAP system, just the same, due to artillery strikes. That is, damage, failure of one of the machines, allowed us to form a gap in the dome RAP system, and, accordingly, to work more efficiently with drones, and then the efficiency of drones increased. How would I say my skeptical attitude, despite the fact that the Russian side claimed super characteristics, but it is still possible to break through it. Naturally, in this case, we can say after the entry of the ammunition of the Czech initiative, yes, of course, the effectiveness of assault actions from the Russian side will fall, because now they have a very big bet on RAP systems. They work. Let's just say, we picked up the key to them, yes, and if there is an amount of artillery ammunition, accordingly, the effectiveness of RAP during assaults will significantly decrease. Specifically, we are talking about assault actions. Therefore, it means that we have no changes in the Lyman direction. We turn to the Seversky direction. 2 days ago, we spoke with you for Bologorovka, for, therefore, the enemy's assault actions. Somewhere we corrected the situation of the red and gray zones, but I also said that the battles we have along the railway in the direction of the excavation are not so much for the Razdalovka, for which they spoke, but the main ones we have for the excavation. It means that today we have footage, and yesterday, closer to night, it was published on the situation here. Russian troops carried out assault operations of the support unit. The result of the battle is unknown, but today we are adding a gray zone and a very, very significant area. The situation means for yesterday, the situation for today. The width is about 3 to 12 kilometers, the depth is 1 to 12 kilometers. This is a significant passage, let's say so frankly, very significant geographically. But in any case, those who watched those shots, they saw the situation. Yes, that is. But in general, the result of the battle is on refinement. But here it is questionable then, 2 more supports that we had in the gray zone, will most likely turn into red. But we will talk about this for, as I understand it, 48 hours, because there is actually activity. What we talked about 2 days ago, there was activity, but it was observed more along the railway, and not northeast of their forward positions. Therefore, within 48 hours, the situation will become more or less clear for us on this section of the front. As for the Bakhmut direction, the hours of the Yar direction, today we had reports from our fighters in the morning that there was a major assault by Russian troops with the support of more than 10 armored vehicles. The assault actions were carried out in the direction of the city of Chaz Yar, that is, just the same deciduous forest. The fighting continues, and by the evening, we will have more or less some information already. This is what Stis Sniper Osman published in his Telegram channel, so this is preliminary information for now. Managed to stop. Well, of course, there is a nuance here, of course, as in the case of the deciduous forest, when yes, they really managed to stop the Russian advance, but they retreated not to their original positions, but took a number of positions in close proximity to the deciduous forest. There are about 600 to 800 meters to the first houses, depending on the position remains. Therefore, there is such a moment, the fighting continues now. As for Ivanovsky, the enemy continues to press here. Naturally, after advancing in the south, the main goal is still to strike at the western, southwestern part of Ivanovo. The main attempts are now coming from the farm to advance, well, to cling to the houses along one of the streets. We have a green street here, behind these houses. Therefore, the fighting continues now, but the situation is very difficult, in short. We are moving to the Avdiivka direction. Burdik. So we said yesterday that the situation will be corrected. By nightfall, we have more or less conditionally adjusted it, as it is in this locality. It means that footage was published, as I said, from the IFU, of a strike on one of the positions of Russian troops along Mira Street. This is where they are entrenched. Well, in fact, you see all the ruins already remain, but in any case, there are basements that Russian troops cling to, and are advancing due to this. There is such a moment. So, according to the situation for yesterday, the situation for today, is moving to a depth of up to 600 meters. Naturally, this information was relevant to us yesterday, and the assault operations continue both along Centralnaya Street in its southern part, and along Mira Street already in the direction of the intersection with Centralnaya Street. Although there are a lot of attacks now, we can state that over the past 24 hours, there have been in the direction with the intersection of 0542. But here, I would say more of a positional nature of the fighting and more of a distracting nature, because the main blow is coming from Semenovka to this site, and as we see with Burdik, and not so much wedged in. Therefore, the fighting continues in this sector of the front. No new information was received on Semenovka. On the plot, there is a thin Umanskaya, thin Yasnobrodovka. There is something to talk about, as they say. So, there was another attack from the Russian troops here. The attack was a tank. Again, one tank came out with a RAP system, was hit by a drone, and in a PV drone, then finished off with drops from the Mavic. Of course, we state again that there is no panacea against drones. Yes, it can be silenced, but there will always be a key selected, and just the same key is so far these are the frequencies, the base frequencies that have been changed. Accordingly, drones do not work with them very effectively. Therefore, the tank was destroyed according to the full video. Where was it? It was in about this area, roughly. So, he drove just the same, along the dried-up riverbed, in the direction of Uman. Well, it was hit. Again, we see, yes, it would seem illogical to send them to the assaults during the day. But there was more of a bet on the RAP system again. It did not justify itself, because after leaving its advanced positions, entering the gray zone, it was immediately hit and destroyed. There is such a moment. Therefore, we again do not record any changes in this sector of the front. Moving on. So, according to Pervomaisky and Vodian, there have been a lot of reports since the night that very heavy fighting is going on, that the APU is counterattacking, and in general, heavy fighting continues on this section of the drone, in this section of the front, without any significant changes. But very heavy. That is the APU. A lot of people say now it is clear that we are not talking about a telethon. We are talking about other more objective sources, that the APU is very bad. It is bad to eat for several reasons. This is ammunition, and this is Russian tactical aviation. But as for the RAP system and so on, so far they have managed to bypass them. But the APU is also taking all possible measures to stop and counterattack on the site as far as possible. We make a remark as much as possible, because, in fact, the situation is still very difficult, in my opinion, in the Avdiivka direction. It's too early to talk about stabilization, even conditional, because the enemy, as you can see, does not give up trying, tries to advance further, very much relies on the RAP system, but in any case, it still has the potential for offensive actions, of course. Now, as for Krasnokorovka. There was an attempt of assault actions from the support along the railway, which, under the control of the enemy, in the direction of the support of the APU, managed to knock out one unit of armored vehicles, retreated to their original positions. Therefore, we do not record any changes in this sector of the front. The fighting continues of a positional nature, but I would say so. Apparently they acted taking into account what we see today on the front. Most likely some new RAP systems arrived. They decided to test them on several sites at once. Well, the result. Again, the attacks were not massive, by one unit of armored vehicles. This is not only what we mention, there are several other sites. They attacked everywhere, and were shot down everywhere, and later Technica was destroyed. But most likely I'll make this conclusion, because it would not be logical to attack during the day, but here one unit at a time. Most likely, they are trying to test their RAP system. In general, the Kurikov direction has moved into absolute positionality. As we understand it, the main efforts from the Russian side, on the South Donetsk sector of the front, have now switched to Novomikhailovka. The fighting continues here without significant changes. Still, the main vector of attacks is the dacha village of Mashinostroidal, and attempts to bypass, therefore, the advanced positions of the APU southwest of Novomikhailovka in the direction of the road section between Konstantinovka and Novomikhailovka, but also without any changes so far. And we are moving on to work for yesterday. We said that we would correct the situation by night. We have adjusted it, but it has a few more conventions. So, we spoke for the support that the censor did not publish his card. Well, actually, it means that the intersections are T-shaped, they have them under control and a little to the north. So this area is also marked under the control of Russian troops. It means that with regard to the forest belt along the road, it remains in the gray zone because there is no information that they have gained a foothold here, and part of the fortified area to the south is under enemy control. The situation for yesterday, the situation for today. But I repeat this again, with several conventions at once, because the situation still remains dynamic in this sector of the front. Because Russian troops are making further attempts with small infantry, small assault groups, to improve the tactical situation, in the direction of the center, in the direction of the school. Therefore, we continue fighting. This area is roughly controlled by Russian troops now. There is such a moment, and we turn to the news.